Welcome to Freema Audiobooks, where calm, clarity, and control transform not only your thinking but your life. Today, we present Respond, Not React, Emotional Control and Mental Strength, an audiobook designed to help you master your emotions, maintain mental clarity under pressure, and cultivate the discipline to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively in any situation. This audiobook is not about suppressing feelings or avoiding conflict. It is about understanding the mechanisms of emotional response, recognizing triggers, and building resilience that allows you to navigate challenges with poise, intelligence, and intentionality. Over the course of this audiobook, you will explore the psychology of emotion, the difference between reactive and responsive behavior, strategies for self-regulation, and actionable techniques to strengthen your mental fortitude. You will learn how to pause, analyze, and act deliberately even in stressful circumstances, transforming instinctive reactions into conscious responses that serve your long-term goals, relationships, and well-being. By internalizing these lessons, listeners gain the tools to maintain focus, reduce stress, and interact with clarity and composure, even in high-pressure or emotionally charged situations. If this audiobook inspires you to take control of your emotions, follow Freema Audiobooks, subscribe for more transformative content, leave a review to support our mission, and share this audiobook with anyone seeking stronger emotional intelligence and mental resilience. Now, prepare to embark on a journey into self-mastery where awareness, discipline, and emotional control empower you to respond rather than react, and mental strength becomes your most reliable asset. This audiobook is divided into 8 chapters, each designed to guide you from understanding your emotional responses to building mental resilience, practicing self-regulation, and mastering the art of intentional action. As we begin with the first chapter, remember that emotional control is not innate, it is cultivated through awareness, practice, and the deliberate application of techniques that transform instinctive reactions into thoughtful, effective responses. Emotions are complex responses to internal and external stimuli, combining physiological reactions, cognitive interpretation, and behavioral impulses, and understanding this interplay is the first step toward consciously influencing how you respond to events rather than reacting automatically. The narrator emphasizes that reactive behavior is often rooted in unconscious processes, as instinctive responses are triggered by perceived threats, stressors, or habitual patterns, and without awareness, these reactions can lead to impulsive, counterproductive, or regrettable outcomes. One of the most significant lessons from this principle is that emotional awareness is a prerequisite for control, because identifying triggers, recognizing early warning signs, and understanding the nature of your responses allows you to pause, reflect, and choose deliberate action over impulsive reaction. Another key insight lies in the differentiation between emotion and action, because feeling anger, frustration, or anxiety is natural, but responding thoughtfully rather than instinctively is a skill that can be cultivated, practiced, and refined over time. The importance of this chapter lies in demonstrating that mental strength and emotional control are not about suppressing feelings, but about observing them, understanding their origin, and redirecting their energy toward constructive, goal-aligned responses that enhance clarity, decision-making, and interpersonal effectiveness. By internalizing these lessons, listeners gain the ability to analyze their own emotional patterns, recognize situations that typically elicit strong reactions, and create strategies to remain composed, focused, and deliberate in the face of stress or provocation. As you apply these principles, you begin to see that emotional control is a learned skill, strengthened through repeated practice, reflection, and intentional behavior, allowing you to navigate challenging situations with resilience, poise, and effectiveness. Another key takeaway from this chapter is the role of mindfulness, because cultivating present moment awareness enhances the ability to observe thoughts and feelings without judgment, providing the space necessary to respond rationally and intentionally rather than reacting impulsively. Ultimately, mastering emotional response equips individuals to transform instinctive reactions into thoughtful, deliberate actions, fostering mental clarity, interpersonal effectiveness, and resilience, laying the foundation for the advanced strategies in the chapters that follow. Reactions into thoughtful, deliberate actions, fostering mental clarity, interpersonal effectiveness, and resilience, laying the foundation for the advanced strategies in the chapters that follow. Chapter 2. Identifying Triggers, Pausing Before Reaction. In this chapter titled Identifying Triggers, Pausing Before Reaction, we explore how recognizing personal triggers, understanding stressors, and practicing intentional pauses allow you to maintain composure, think clearly, and respond thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. While highlighting why this skill is essential for emotional control and mental strength, triggers are stimuli, external events, interpersonal interactions, or internal thoughts that elicit automatic emotional responses, and understanding them is critical because unrecognized triggers often provoke reactions that are disproportionate, counterproductive, or misaligned with long-term goals. The narrator emphasizes that pausing before reacting is a skill, not a natural reflex, and it is cultivated through consistent observation, mindfulness, and conscious effort to create space between stimulus and response. One of the most significant lessons from this principle is that awareness of triggers empowers choice, because once you recognize the situations or cues that provoke strong emotional reactions, you can plan strategies to manage your responses deliberately. Another key insight lies in the connection between stress and reaction, as heightened stress amplifies emotional intensity, reduces cognitive flexibility, and increases the likelihood of impulsive behavior, demonstrating the importance of both physiological regulation and cognitive awareness in response management. The importance of this chapter lies in demonstrating that self-regulation is built through deliberate practice, where recognizing triggers, breathing, pausing, and reframing situations creates a buffer between impulse and action, enhancing clarity and decision-making. By internalizing these lessons, listeners gain the ability to anticipate emotional responses, design personal strategies to manage reactions, and reinforce habits that prioritize thoughtful action over immediate impulse. Techniques such as mindful breathing, brief reflection, or reframing thoughts enable this pause, providing the mental space necessary to consider consequences, options, and alignment with personal values before acting. As you apply these strategies, you begin to see that maintaining control is not about suppressing emotion but about channeling emotional energy into deliberate, productive, and goal-aligned actions that enhance relationships, performance, and personal well-being. Ultimately, mastering the identification of triggers and the practice of pausing equips individuals to respond rather than react, transforming habitual impulsivity into thoughtful, strategic, and controlled behavior, creating a foundation for the emotional mastery explored in subsequent chapters. Chapter 3. Managing emotional intensity, reducing reactivity, and building resilience. In this chapter, titled Managing Emotional Intensity, Reducing Reactivity, and Building Resilience, we explore techniques to regulate strong emotions, maintain clarity under pressure, and cultivate mental strength, while examining why emotional regulation is essential for personal effectiveness, healthy relationships, and consistent decision-making. Emotional intensity arises naturally in response to challenges, conflicts, or stress, and managing it requires awareness of physiological and psychological cues that signal rising tension, enabling proactive intervention before reactions escalate. The narrator emphasizes that resilience is developed through repeated practice, because each time you successfully regulate emotion, respond thoughtfully, and maintain composure, you strengthen the neural pathways and mental habits that support sustained emotional control. One of the most significant lessons from this principle is that regulation is not about suppressing feelings but about observing, understanding, and redirecting emotional energy into constructive, intentional action that serves your goals and values. Another key insight lies in cognitive reframing, as changing the interpretation of stressful or triggering events reduces their emotional impact, promotes problem solving, and prevents impulsive reactions that can escalate conflict or undermine performance. The importance of this chapter lies in demonstrating that managing emotional intensity is a skill that combines self-awareness, mindfulness, and practical techniques such as deep breathing, visualization, grounding exercises, and strategic pauses to maintain composure. By internalizing these lessons, listeners gain the ability to remain calm in high-pressure situations, respond rather than react, and engage in behaviors that reinforce mental strength, confidence, and emotional stability. Techniques such as progressive relaxation, meditation, and reflective journaling enhance the capacity to process emotions without being overwhelmed, building both short-term control and long-term resilience. As you apply these strategies, you begin to see that mental strength is not innate but cultivated, and that consistent practice in managing emotional intensity ensures that reactions are deliberate, thoughtful, and aligned with long-term goals rather than impulsive or counterproductive. Ultimately, mastering emotional regulation equips individuals to navigate stress, conflict, and uncertainty with composure, transforming challenging experiences into opportunities for growth, reflection, and deliberate, intentional action. Chapter 4. Perspective and Mindset. Cognitive Reframing for Thoughtful Responses. In this chapter, titled Perspective and Mindset, Cognitive Reframing for Thoughtful Responses, we explore how adjusting your mental lens, cultivating awareness of thought patterns, and intentionally reframing situations allows you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, while examining why mindset is a cornerstone of emotional control and enduring mental strength. Perspective shapes reality because the way you interpret events fundamentally determines your emotional response and subsequent behavior. And by learning to consciously shift your viewpoint, you gain the ability to reduce unnecessary emotional escalation, find opportunities in adversity, and approach challenges with rational clarity. The narrator emphasizes that mindset is more than attitude. It is an internal framework that informs expectations, filters experiences, and influences both perception and action, meaning that cultivating a growth-oriented reflective mindset enables measured responses even in high-pressure scenarios. Cognitive reframing involves identifying automatic negative interpretations, questioning their validity, and deliberately replacing them with balanced, constructive interpretations, which diminishes the intensity of emotional reactions and allows for deliberate, strategic choices instead of impulsive behaviors. One of the most significant lessons from this principle is that almost every emotional reaction is filtered through a narrative you create, consciously or unconsciously. And by altering that narrative, you can change the magnitude and direction of your emotional response without denying or suppressing your feelings. Another key insight lies in empathy and situational understanding, because expanding perspective to consider others' motives, constraints, and context reduces judgmental reactions, fosters patience, and encourages responses that are strategic, constructive, and relationship-enhancing rather than impulsive or defensive. The importance of this chapter lies in demonstrating that reframing is a proactive process, requiring reflection, self-awareness, and disciplined practice to recognize patterns, interrupt habitual reactions, and redirect thought toward rational, solution-oriented outcomes that align with your values and long-term objectives. By internalizing these strategies, listeners gain the capacity to pause, observe, and consciously interpret challenging events through a lens that supports emotional regulation, enabling clarity, calmness, and strategic thinking even when stress or provocation is high. As you apply these techniques, you begin to understand that emotional mastery is deeply connected to the narratives you tell yourself, and that by actively reshaping thought patterns, you can influence your physiological response, mental focus, and behavioral choices, transforming moments of potential conflict into opportunities for growth and deliberate action. Ultimately, mastering perspective and mindset equips individuals to consistently respond rather than react, maintain poise under pressure, and exercise mental strength in a way that is both sustainable and aligned with personal and professional goals, creating a foundation for composure, clarity, and resilience in all areas of life. Chapter 5. Grounding Techniques. Maintaining Emotional Equilibrium in Real-World Scenarios. In this chapter, titled Grounding Techniques, Maintaining Emotional Equilibrium in Real-World Scenarios, we explore practical strategies for staying centered, reducing stress, and maintaining clarity when faced with emotionally charged situations. Highlighting why deliberate grounding practices are essential for mental strength, effective responses, and long-term resilience. Grounding techniques serve as anchors, providing a method to reconnect with the present moment when emotions begin to overwhelm rational thought, because intense feelings like anger, frustration, or anxiety can hijack cognition, cloud judgment, and trigger reactive behaviors that are counterproductive and potentially damaging to relationships, goals, and self-perception. By using practices such as mindful breathing, sensory awareness, or physical grounding exercises, you train your mind to shift focus from the surge of emotion to controlled, intentional action, allowing space to assess the situation, consider consequences, and respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. These techniques are particularly valuable in high-pressure professional settings, interpersonal conflicts, or unexpected crises, because they create a buffer between stimulus and response, giving you the opportunity to access your reasoning and values rather than reacting on instinct alone. Grounding is not merely a temporary measure. With consistent practice, it strengthens the neurological pathways that regulate stress responses, improves emotional resilience, and allows you to maintain composure even under repeated provocation or prolonged challenges. The narrator emphasizes that effective grounding combines mental, physical, and environmental strategies. Because emotional regulation is holistic, the mind, body, and context interact to either escalate or dampen reactivity. Techniques such as deep diaphragmatic breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, visualizing a safe space, or even engaging in deliberate micro-pauses between actions help to reduce physiological arousal, calm the nervous system, and restore cognitive control. This chapter illustrates how combining multiple grounding approaches amplifies their effectiveness, allowing you to stabilize emotions, enhance decision-making clarity, and strengthen the ability to maintain composure when confronted with stressful or triggering circumstances. One of the most important lessons is that the more you practice grounding, the more automatic it becomes, transforming emotional regulation from a conscious effort into a default habit, where maintaining equilibrium is instinctive rather than forced, ensuring that responses remain intentional and aligned with long-term objectives even under intense stress. Another key insight lies in the power of routine and preparation, because establishing habitual grounding practices before high-stress moments equips you to face emotionally charged situations with confidence, reduces the likelihood of reactive behavior, and fosters a proactive rather than reactive mindset. Incorporating brief check-ins throughout the day, moments of reflection, and structured pauses within your schedule creates a sustainable practice that reinforces resilience, improves self-awareness, and allows the mind to recalibrate when overwhelmed. Grounding also interacts with cognitive reframing, as centering your attention facilitates more rational evaluation of situations, enabling you to reinterpret challenges constructively rather than responding defensively or emotionally. This combination of mental clarity, physical regulation, and habitual preparedness creates a layered approach to emotional control that strengthens decision-making, relationships, and overall mental performance. The importance of this chapter lies in demonstrating that emotional equilibrium is both trainable and sustainable, provided you implement concrete, actionable techniques consistently, because resilience is not innate but cultivated through practice, mindfulness, and deliberate application of strategies that align with self-regulation principles. By internalizing these lessons, listeners gain the capacity to remain grounded during moments of stress, navigate conflict thoughtfully, and respond with intention, transforming potential volatility into clarity, composure, and constructive action. As you apply these techniques, you begin to experience the compounded benefits of grounding, reduced stress reactivity, heightened awareness of triggers, improved focus, and the ability to engage with challenges confidently, thoughtfully, and strategically. Ultimately, mastering grounding techniques equips individuals to maintain emotional balance regardless of circumstance, allowing mental strength to prevail, reactions to become deliberate, and resilience to grow steadily in all aspects of life. Chapter 6. Building Mental Resilience, Daily Habits for Sustained Emotional Control. In this chapter titled Building Mental Resilience, Daily Habits for Sustained Emotional Control, we explore how consistent practices, intentional routines, and disciplined habits reinforce mental strength, improve emotional regulation, and allow you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, while examining the practical methods that cultivate resilience in real-world situations. Chapter 6. Building Mental Resilience, Daily Habits for Sustained Emotional Control. In this chapter titled Building Mental Resilience, Daily Habits for Sustained Emotional Control, we explore how consistent practices, intentional routines, and disciplined habits reinforce mental strength, improve emotional regulation, and allow you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, while examining the practical methods that cultivate resilience in real-world situations. Chapter 6. Building Mental Resilience, Daily Habits for Sustained Emotional Control. In this chapter titled Building Mental Resilience, Daily Habits for Sustained Emotional Control, we explore how consistent practices, intentional routines, and disciplined habits reinforce mental strength, improve emotional regulation, and allow you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, while examining the practical methods that cultivate resilience in real-world situations. Resilience is not a trait one is simply born with. It is developed through repeated exposure to challenges, conscious reflection on responses, and the intentional practice of strategies that reinforce stability and clarity under pressure. Incorporating daily habits such as journaling emotional reactions, setting aside moments for mindful reflection, or practicing brief meditation sessions strengthens the neural pathways that govern self-regulation, allowing the brain to recognize and control impulsive urges more effectively over time. These routines create a feedback loop in which small, deliberate efforts compound, gradually enhancing your capacity to navigate stress, conflict, and uncertainty without succumbing to reactive impulses, even when confronted with unexpected or emotionally charged situations. The narrator emphasizes that mental resilience is closely tied to self-discipline, because consistently choosing to engage in reflective practices, pause before responding, and assess situations carefully trains the mind to resist short-term emotional impulses and prioritize thoughtful, values-aligned action. The chapter illustrates that embedding these practices into your daily schedule, whether through morning reflection, structured pauses before responding to difficult communications, or in-day evaluation of emotional reactions, provides the consistency necessary to make controlled responses habitual rather than effortful. A crucial insight in this chapter is the role of incremental challenge in developing resilience. By exposing yourself intentionally to situations that provoke mild stress or discomfort and practicing regulated responses, the mind learns to tolerate greater emotional intensity over time. This approach allows individuals to strengthen coping mechanisms progressively, gradually increasing their ability to maintain composure and think clearly, even when confronted with high-stakes emotionally charged events. Mental resilience is thus cultivated through a combination of structured exposure, deliberate practice, and reflective analysis of reactions. Another key element explored in this chapter is the integration of physical wellness with emotional control. Regular exercise, sufficient rest, and mindful nutrition are not merely health practices. Directly influence stress tolerance, cognitive function, and emotional regulation. By maintaining physiological balance, the body supports the mind in sustaining clarity, patience, and composure, creating a foundation that complements the mental and emotional practices introduced earlier in the audiobook. The importance of this chapter lies in demonstrating that sustained emotional control is achieved not in moments of crisis alone, but through consistent, deliberate cultivation of habits that reinforce self-regulation, focus, and resilience. Listeners are guided to implement strategies that transform resilience from a conceptual idea into a daily practice, enabling reliable control over reactions and enhancing performance in both personal and professional spheres. Developing mental resilience also requires a mindset that views setbacks, mistakes, and emotional triggers as opportunities for learning rather than failures. Each emotional challenge presents a chance to observe habitual reactions, refine strategies, and expand the capacity for measured, deliberate responses. Through this perspective, resilience becomes dynamic, adaptive, and increasingly robust with repeated application in real-world scenarios. By practicing these techniques over time, the mind becomes conditioned to maintain composure, evaluate situations objectively, and act in alignment with values and long-term goals, even when under pressure, provocation, or unexpected stresses. This chapter emphasizes that building mental resilience is an active, ongoing process, deeply intertwined with both cognitive awareness and disciplined routine. The chapter concludes by illustrating that mental resilience is cumulative, with every intentional practice strengthening the ability to respond thoughtfully, navigate complex emotional landscapes, and sustain emotional stability across a wide range of circumstances. By focusing on daily habits and reflective strategies, emotional control evolves from a reactive struggle into an integrated automatic capability that supports decision-making, interpersonal interactions, and overall mental strength. Chapter 7. Advanced Strategies, Maintaining Emotional Control in High-Stakes Situations. In this chapter titled Advanced Strategies, Maintaining Emotional Control in High-Stakes Situations, we explore methods for preserving composure, making deliberate choices, and exercising mental strength during moments of intense pressure, conflict, or unpredictability, while emphasizing the importance of preparation, awareness, and adaptive strategies. High-stakes situations often trigger heightened emotional responses because the brain perceives potential loss, threat, or challenge as urgent, causing instinctive reactions that bypass rational thought and compromise judgment. Recognizing this physiological response allows individuals to preemptively implement strategies that dampen impulsivity, maintain cognitive clarity, and facilitate deliberate, intentional action. Techniques such as slow, focused breathing, micro-pauses before responding, and cognitive reframing of threats transform the automatic fight or flight response into a controlled, strategic mode of thinking that aligns with long-term objectives rather than immediate emotional impulses. The narrator emphasizes that preparation is critical for managing high-pressure scenarios, because anticipating potential triggers, practicing responses in low-stakes settings, and developing pre-established coping strategies reduces the likelihood of reactive behavior and allows for confident navigation of emotionally charged environments. By rehearsing responses, visualizing optimal reactions, and mentally simulating challenging interactions, you create a cognitive roadmap that guides your actions when real-world stressors arise, transforming uncertainty into structured, intentional behavior. Another key insight lies in maintaining situational awareness. In complex scenarios, evaluating both external cues and internal emotional signals allows you to distinguish between reactions that are reflexive and responses that are constructive, ensuring that choices are guided by objective assessment rather than temporary emotional intensity. This skill is particularly vital in professional negotiations, interpersonal conflicts, or moments requiring leadership under scrutiny, where impulsive reactions can have long-lasting consequences. Building on this adaptive thinking is introduced as a strategy for sustaining control. High-stakes situations rarely unfold exactly as predicted, and the ability to remain flexible, adjust expectations, and modify strategies, while maintaining composure ensures that decisions remain rational, strategic, and aligned with your values. By combining awareness, preparation, and adaptability, individuals can navigate uncertainty without succumbing to emotional hijacking or impulsive responses that compromise outcomes. The importance of this chapter lies in demonstrating that emotional control in critical moments is not a matter of luck or temperament, but a product of deliberate preparation, strategic self-awareness, and practiced techniques. Integrating grounding exercises, reflective pauses, and cognitive reframing into real-world application ensures that mental clarity prevails even under intense pressure, allowing thoughtful, calculated responses that optimize results and minimize risk. Advanced strategies also emphasize the role of self-compassion and reflection, recognizing that lapses in control are part of growth and using them as feedback rather than judgment strengthens resilience and fosters continuous improvement. Each high-pressure experience becomes a training opportunity to refine response strategies, identify recurring triggers, and strengthen the mental habits that support long-term emotional stability. Through consistent application of these techniques, mental strength evolves into a reliable resource that supports calm, rational decision-making, even when external circumstances are unpredictable or emotionally charged. With these skills, challenges that once provoked fear, anxiety, or anger become opportunities to exercise mastery, demonstrate composure, and reinforce the habit of responding thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Finally, this chapter highlights the cumulative effect of practicing advanced strategies over time. As each stressful interaction is met with controlled, deliberate response, the brain strengthens its capacity for self-regulation, creating a feedback loop in which composure becomes habitual, resilience deepens, and emotional control becomes increasingly intuitive. supporting all aspects of personal, professional, and social life. Chapter 8. Integrating Emotional Control, Sustaining Mental Strength in Daily Life. In this chapter, titled Integrating Emotional Control, Sustaining Mental Strength in Daily Life, we explore how to embed the principles of emotional regulation, resilience, and thoughtful response into everyday routines, interactions, and decision-making processes. WHILE, highlighting why long-term integration is essential for personal growth, consistent performance, and balanced living. Emotional control is most effective when it is not isolated to high-pressure moments but practiced consistently throughout daily life. Because habitual regulation strengthens mental pathways, reduces susceptibility to impulsive reactions, and ensures that composure becomes a default state rather than a conscious effort only under stress. Establishing structured routines such as morning reflection, periodic mindfulness check-ins, journaling responses to challenging interactions, and scheduled periods of mental decompression creates continuous reinforcement of self-awareness, grounding, and deliberate action, making emotional mastery part of the natural rhythm of your life. The narrator emphasizes that integration requires intentionality, because emotional control is not automatic in the absence of deliberate practice, and without embedding strategies into daily patterns, lapses under stress or provocation are more likely. By designing daily habits that cultivate observation of thought patterns, awareness of triggers, and mindful responses, individuals can transform reactive tendencies into proactive, deliberate choices that align with values and long-term goals. Another critical insight is the role of reflection and self-evaluation in sustaining emotional control. Taking time each day to review interactions, assess moments where reactions were automatic versus deliberate, and identify opportunities for improvement reinforces learning, strengthens resilience, and deepens insight into personal behavioral patterns. Over time, these reflections cultivate a mindset oriented toward growth, self-awareness, and intentionality where emotional regulation is increasingly natural and less cognitively taxing. Physical and lifestyle factors are also essential for long-term mental strength. Adequate rest, balanced nutrition, physical activity, and stress reduction practices amplify cognitive and emotional capacity, ensuring that the brain and body are prepared to respond thoughtfully in daily challenges. Integrating these elements into a holistic approach to emotional control enhances consistency, supports mental resilience, and reduces vulnerability to impulsive reactions or fatigue-induced lapses in composure. This chapter also emphasizes social and environmental integration because the people, surroundings, and stimuli you engage with influence emotional responses. Creating supportive environments, communicating boundaries, and fostering relationships that encourage reflection and respect strengthen your ability to remain composed, manage triggers, and exercise deliberate responses consistently. A vital lesson is that emotional control is cumulative. The more you practice integrating reflection, mindfulness, grounding, and deliberate action into daily life, the more automatic and resilient your mental strength becomes. Moments that once provoked frustration, anger, or anxiety gradually become opportunities to demonstrate clarity, patience, and rationality, reinforcing confidence in your ability to respond constructively. Sustained integration also requires flexibility. As life presents unexpected challenges, evolving stressors, and shifting dynamics, the ability to adapt emotional regulation strategies to new contexts, maintain clarity under changing conditions, and apply learned techniques across diverse scenarios ensures that mental strength remains durable, reliable, and functional in every facet of life. Finally, embedding emotional control into daily life transforms it from a reactive skill into a holistic lifestyle. By continuously practicing awareness, reflection, grounding, and resilience-building strategies, individuals cultivate a stable foundation of mental strength, allowing thoughtful, deliberate responses to become instinctive, adaptive, and aligned with personal and professional goals. This integration ensures that emotional mastery is not temporary or situational, but a durable and enduring aspect of character and performance. As we conclude Respond, Not React: Emotional Control and Mental Strength, it becomes clear that the ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively is not innate but cultivated through awareness, practice, and intentional strategies. Over the course of these 8 chapters, you have explored the foundation of emotional responses, identification of personal triggers, regulation of emotional intensity, perspective and cognitive grounding techniques, the development of daily resilience habits, advanced strategies for high-stakes situations, and integration of emotional control into everyday life. You have seen that mental strength is reinforced not in moments of calm but in how you navigate stress, conflict, and provocation. By internalizing these principles, listeners are equipped to maintain clarity, composure, and rational thinking, even in emotionally charged or unpredictable situations, allowing responses to be deliberate, constructive, and aligned with long-term goals. The benefits are profound: enhanced focus, better interpersonal relationships, reduced stress, and the ability to make decisions that reflect values and strategic intent rather than impulsive reactions. This audiobook demonstrates that emotional mastery is a continuous, holistic practice where awareness, reflection, and intentional behavior converge to create resilience, consistency, and mental strength that endures across all areas of life. If this audiobook has inspired you to take control of your emotions and develop stronger mental resilience, begin by applying the techniques of self-awareness, grounding, reflection, and cognitive reframing in your daily routines. Follow Freema Audiobooks for more guidance on personal development, emotional intelligence, and mental strength strategies that empower you to navigate challenges with composure and clarity. Subscribe to access content designed to help you transform insight into practical action and cultivate habits that reinforce consistent emotional control. Leave a review to support the mission of helping listeners develop the skills to respond thoughtfully, act deliberately, and maintain mental clarity in all circumstances. Share this audiobook with someone seeking tools to manage stress, maintain composure, and build mental fortitude, enabling them to face challenges with poise and confidence. Remember, emotional mastery is not a temporary skill but a lifelong practice. And by committing to these strategies today, you can transform reactive behavior into deliberate action, strengthen mental resilience, and live with greater intentionality and clarity.